honey.
Miko was a kind of person who could do at least 100 useful things. If she hadn't been a nanny, Theodore often thought she wouldn't have made a good spy. Right, would have made a good spy. Right now, she was standing at the counter of their sunny kitchen making sushi. She was wearing her work uniform of loose black pajamas, a white slip-on heads with a single banjo bracelet of milky green jade that shimmered down. Then against the counter on the sink faucet, Theodora watched her roll up silvers of crab meat and avocado with rice and glossy green sheets of seaweed, and then cut the roll into pieces. She placed on a wooden serving block, making
Making sushi was one of the useful things Miko could do. She could also hear through walls, she said without turning around. That probably wasn't the best strategy, Dodo, bringing up the silverfish. Theodora picked up one of the shiny sheets of dry seaweed and held it up to the light. Don't rub it in. The silverfish was Madeline Silverfern's father, Malcolm Silverfern, head of the zoology department at the university, and even more important to the Oglethorpe's household, head of the tenure committee. According to Miko, the silverfish was the reason that Theodora's father was a full professor yet, wasn't a full professor yet. What they all knew and what no one talked about was that if he wasn't made professor soon, Mr. Oglethorpe would have to find a job at another university, probably in some other state.
Theodora rolled a sheet of seaweed into a megaphone and spoke into the narrow and pointing the open of the cone at Miko. What if Dad finds some new kind of animal in those? Something no one else knew existed. Miko took the seaweed sheet away from her and began to make another sushi roll. He could name it after you, said Miko. Something or other. Theodorinus. Something or other Theodorinus.
Wow. But what if he found something big? Not just some kind of beetle. It would be a big deal. The silverfish would have to make him a professor.
Maybe. Miko opened the jar and lifted out a limp of pink slice of
what you ate.
Pickled ginger with her chopsticks and deftly twirled the slice into a small rose.
Oh, that's what you do with tissue. It could happen, Theodora said. They didn't think there were any mammals unknown to science, and then they found that new kind of deer in Vietnam and that monkey in South America. Your father might discover something, but it might or might not make a difference, Dodo.
We can only hope, said Mr. Oglethorpe from the doorway. Miko, you really shouldn't go so much trouble. We'd just be happy with fish sticks.
Fish sticks.
Miko tilted her head to one side, considering the wooden block with its carefully composed arrangement of sushi. Her expression was carefully composed too. It was usually hard to guess what Miko was thinking. It relaxes me, she said, like making origami. Only you can eat it.
Nice. After dinner, Theodora and her father walked into Inman Square for ice cream at Coneheads. I remember Coneheads. Carrie, the owner, seemed surprised to see them, but she just made chit chat as she dished up their cones. The three Oglethorpes had been regular customers when Theodora's mother was alive, but after she died, Theodora and her father had stayed away for a long time. The wooden seats of their old corner booth were still shiny from countless bottoms scooting in and out. Their ice cream slowly without speaking because it felt so familiar and so strange to be there. Just the two of them. Theodora smiled a tiny smile and let her dad smile back.
Later that evening, when he came to kiss her good night, Mr. Oglethorpe had a clear spot on the edge of the bed. Before he could sit down, he gathered up a slithery pile of video discs.
What? What's this? He asked, holding up a small printed square of plastic. The light from the bedside lamp shone through it. It's a wyvern gills tattoo, said Theodora. It washes off eventually. Mr. Oglethorpe shook his head. Dodo, I thought you were going to spend any more of your allowance on this dragon junk. Wyvern junk? Theodora took the tattoo and what's this? Yeah, placed it carefully in the ever expanding shrine of Wyvernalia under the window. Anyway, I didn't spend my allowance on it. It came free in the cereal.
Mr. Oglethorpe rolled his eyes. Sometimes I wish I'd never taken you to see that movie. I hope you'll turn the video off long enough to notice that it's summer vacation.
To Theodora's delight, he said this under the, what is that? R? Outspread wings of the papier-mâché wyvern she had made in art class. The wyvern had used up 2 whole Sunday editions of the Boston Globe, and it had a wingspan of almost 6 feet. Its open beak was only inches from the top of Mr. Oglethorpe's head. I don't want to come back to find you've turned into one of those blind salamanders that live in the caves. You'd have to give up cereal with wyvern marshmallows and start eating flies.
Theodore slid down under the sheets. If you take me to Lowe's with you, I'll leave all my wyvern stuff behind, even my trading cards. Wow. Mr. Oglethorpe kissed her good night and stood in the doorway with his hand on the light switch. You're lucky I didn't take Aunt Miranda up to the offer to send you to French camp. Now go to sleep.
The next morning, they all piled into the car with all the luggage for the drive to the airport. Mr. Oglethorpe was flying to New York to join up with some other scientists for the long flight to Laos. At the security gate, Miko discreetly hung back while Theodora and her father said goodbye.
Squeeze you, said Mr. Oglethorpe, hugging his daughter and lifting her off the ground. Squeeze you back, said Theodora, as he set her back down. Then Mr. Oglethorpe waved at Miko and said, "See you in August," and disappeared through the metal detector.
On the ride home, Theodora was very quiet, except for an occasional deep sigh, and it was shaping up to be a truly lousy summer. Her 2 best friends, and who was she kidding? They were only friends, were going to be away until the week before school started. Milo was spending 10 weeks with his mother and stepfather in Calgary, Alberta, and Valerie was being held prisoner at an orchestra camp in the Adirondacks.
As other deep sigh echoed from the back seat, Miko glanced into the rearview mirror. Theodora had slid so far down in her seat that the top of her head was barely visible.
I brought some bread, Miko said, cutting off the next side. Shall we go feed the ducks?
They drove to
What? The big what?
Worthing Cemetery not far from Harvard Square. Miko sparked the car and they walked up the path to their favorite duck pond. The passing graves marked with marble urns, lambs, obelisks, rose-covered cross, balcony angels,
Melancholy.
melancholy angels, and even tiny Greek temples for a cemetery.
For a cemetery.
For a cemetery, Mount Urban really wasn't very spooky, with the sunlight filtering with the branches of huge old chestnut oaks and robins bounding along the brilliant green carpets of grass between the graves.
Miko and Theodora took off their shoes and dabbled their toes in the duckweed, tearing off chunks of bread and tossing them to the resident mallards. Miko was an accomplished catnapper, and in a few moments she was lying back on the grassy bank, her sunglasses slightly askew, snoring. Theodora had soon forgotten all about her father's going off to the Leshon jungle to discover exciting new creatures without her. She was imagining instead that she was an apprentice wyvern keeper, second class, dangling her feet off a drawbridge into a moat, tossing bread to the resident dragon. That's sweet.
Thus occupied, neither Miko or Theodora noticed a growing disturbance not far away from them. Crows had been gathering by dozens of nearby oak, bobbing and cawing until they filled its branches. They were used to mobbing birds of prey, driving off any red-tailed hawks that tried to step up housekeeping in the cemetery. But this time, as they attempted to flush the intruder hiding deep among the innermost branches, there was a warning sound, something between a snake's hiss and a lion's roar. A plume of flame shot out from the greenery like water from the firehouse. One crow fell to the ground, startled and singed, but otherwise unhurt. The rest fled squawking.
Hidden in the oak, Wicca pondered her plight. This spot had looked quite promising. Water, plenty of perches, and groundskeepers, and bird watchers. 2 T's. But there wasn't enough privacy. As soon as it was dark, she would have to move on and find a more suitable place for hatching magic. Chapter 3 next week, guys. Stay tuned.